We at here? 6 o'clock. Meeting is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and opening prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We pray. Almighty God, as we gather here today to serve our community, we humbly ask for your wisdom and guidance in our deliberations. May we approach each issue with open hearts, listening to different perspectives and seeking solutions that benefit all. Grant us the courage to make decisions with integrity and compassion, always keeping the needs of our community at the forefront. We pray for unity in our discussions and a spirit of collaboration as we work together to build a better future for our community. In your name we pray. Amen. Roll call has been taken. Supervisors Poppy and Ramden and Patricia asked to be excused. All others are present. I would ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Motion. Okay. Okay. Motion by Supervisor Ortlieb, seconded by Supervisor Lazansky. Is there any discussion of the motion? Very well. You may register your vote. I have 17 yes, none opposed. Motion carries. Would look for a motion for approval of the previous county board minutes. Motion by Supervisor Shelton, seconded by Supervisor Kroll. Is there any discussion of those minutes? Seeing none, you may register your vote. 17 yes, none opposed. Motion carries. Citizens input. Do we have anyone who has requested to speak? None? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Anyone who wishes to speak to the board? Is there anyone who wishes to speak? See none. We will move on to appointments.
Nicolay Federated Library System Board, Mark Teskey. And the Local Emergency Planning Committee, Hillary Rowe.
Is there a motion? Motion by Supervisor Ortlieb, seconded by Supervisor Baker. Is there any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, you may register your vote. 17 yes, none opposed. Motion carries. Annual reports and others. Mr. Kroll, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I just wanted to briefly bring people up to speed with recruitment efforts. End of the year does kind of tend to provoke or promote or allow or encourage some retirements. So we've been really busy refilling positions vacated due to some retirements and also some resignations. So we're working really hard with that. Specifically, I know the Sheriff's Department recruiting for jailer dispatchers is an area of need. Just where we're at with that right now is there's 2 openings as well as 2 people who are in training and not yet advanced to a place where they can work independently. So the remaining staff are working extra hard and being pulled in for some overtime hours to help cover and ensure the jail is adequately staffed. Not a crisis state at this point, but we need to get people back in those positions as quickly as we can. And we're doing some things with promotions, working on billboard efforts and met with Sheriff's Department leadership yesterday to work through just general strategy and some processing around what we can do better to try to have every opportunity for success in filling those roles. In addition to that, we also have openings in the Human Services Department for some billing positions and a social worker. So we're really busy just in general, refilling staff positions, and at least if nothing else, we've had a little bit better success rate with getting new applicants in for these roles. It was in a really severe lull for a year or two. And now at least the applications have generally picked up. Where I haven't seen that, to be honest, though, is in the jailer dispatcher positions. That's still a pretty dry area to try to recruit. So we're working hard at it, and likely in the near future, we'll be pursuing some approvals and discussion with the board if there's any need to change strategy or reallocate resources in that end to try to get those positions filled. So just wanted to provide the board with that update on where we're at. Nothing for you to consider or vote on this evening. And I'm available for any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions for the administrator? All right, thank you very much. Moving on to committee reports. Are there any questions on any of the committee reports that you have reviewed? Supervisor Yonke, I was wondering if you're going to tell us about how things are at Winter Park.
There you go.
Wow, wonderful.
So far as 24 tubers that have been out on the hill. Last weekend, Ski Hill opened up, 200 people went on that. There was even a couple from St. Louis that wanted to find some snow. And that was during the holidays. They had 3 kids and they're heading to Door County, no snow. So they came to Tubing Hill and had a blast. We had people from Louisiana, Texas, Florida, Hawaii, Virgin Islands, and about 60% of the people are from out of county.
Oh, excellent.
It's going
And-
good. Ice rink is up and running.
And those ones that are out of state, do we charge them an extra fee? Is that
Nope.
in-state, out-of-state? No, just trying to find revenue. Any other, any questions on any of the other reports? Any other minutes? All right. Reading of first ordinance, we have none, so we will move on to the consideration of resolutions, which we do have one.
Bertram Communications LLC bead endorsement.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion? We need to move on beyond committee reports. There we go. Yeah. It's not that there is no motion, just isn't on the screen. Okay, so motion by Supervisor Shelton, second by Supervisor Ortlieb. Is there discussion of this motion? Yes, Supervisor Swaggle.
As it says on here, probably like we're line 38. Whereas Kewaunee County will provide no direct funding or match. However, the county plans to provide in-kind contributions. No money from Kewaunee County, period, zero.
That's what it
Sir?
says.
Okay, that's just that for people who are, if they're watching over the internet or something, for them to know that also, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the motion? Supervisor Yonke, please.
Is this going to serve the whole county, all districts?
An awful lot of it. Mr. Kroll will address it more specifically.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, if I could just take the board on a bit of a journey here really quickly to bring everyone up to speed who hasn't been able to be part of the discussions. I'll take a couple minutes of your time, but I think it'll probably answer a lot of questions. So here we go. So the BEAD project stands for Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment. It's a federal nationwide program that will entail an investment of $42 billion across the country. It's overseen by, in Wisconsin, the Public Service Commission, and nationally at the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, NTIA. Its goals are to provide affordable, reliable, high-speed internet to all Americans, prioritizing underserved and unserved areas, which is part of the reason why Kewaunee County actually did really well in the assessment of need portion of it. The funding is distributed through states and territories based on their unserved and underserved locations. And the states are responsible for the administration of the sub-grants. So the feds allocate money out to the state. The state then allocates money as it sees fit within its borders. As far as Wisconsin's concerned, Wisconsin submitted a number of addresses for BEAD eligibility to the federal government. And over 4,000 addresses in Kewaunee County are eligible. So if you think about our population being approximately 20,000 people, having 4,000 addresses marked as unserved or underserved is actually really favorable for us. I see the map is up on the screen. It shows a pretty good density. You know, if you look at where the roadways are, there's pretty much yellow and light blue dots all along there, mostly yellow, and yellow is eligible, whereas ineligible is the blue. Majority of the ineligible addresses are because they already have access to services, at least as according to the rules of the program. May not be true in every individual setting, but that's generally the case. So back on my little presentation here. So each, in order to be eligible for the program, to participate and write for the grant, a provider had to send in their information to the state indicating that they wanted to apply for grant funding to provide the BEAD program, and the state had to issue approvals on those. Subsequent to that, we did talk with 4 different providers who had interest in working in Kewaunee County before bringing forward the proposal that is from Bertram that's on the resolution. One of the reasons for getting so involved with this, because it is a private grant for private companies, one of the reasons to get so involved is because, of course, the value of impact of internet services in our county. To be able to provide stronger internet services for thousands and thousands of people, as you could understand, it's a big deal. We also, the state actually showed quite a bit of foresight and wisdom in setting up the scoring so that counties have an impact, and so do municipalities, and we can talk about that a little bit too. But counties will be able to impact the scoring of the grant proposals because we can only recommend support for 1 provider per project unit. We won't worry about project units tonight because there's actually 29 of them in our borders. And the proposal from Bertram applies to all. So anyways, long story short, in the scoring process, the county's endorsement is worth 7 points. It's a significant margin. Last time there was a grant proposal, anything structured like this, the gap between the funded projects and the lowest projects was not as big as 7 points. So the 7-point swing that potentially could come with a county endorsement would be significant. Town and municipal government is also worth 2 points. And as part of the work with the broadband committee, they have directed me to be very forthright and open and helpful to our local township and municipal partners as well, as far as explaining the county's process and some of the factors that caused us to get to this point. The grants are due to the state by February 25th. And when you back that up, that means that now is probably the best time to be able to issue this endorsement, and later would be problematic. Providers are currently in the process of writing very large, complicated grant proposals to the state. And so them having certainty on county endorsement is very helpful for them in the success of their project. The broadband committee is made up of Supervisor Shelton and Poppy, as well as Chairman Olson and local resident and IT expert August Neverman, who's with us tonight as well. Also, IT Director Ross Learning, myself, and Corp Counsel Dave Depot have attended many of the meetings. There's been 6 meetings in 2024, 5 since November 1st as the project started to roll out. As I mentioned earlier, we met with 4 providers individually in closed session to hear of their business strategies and their intention with their bid proposals, or BEAD proposals, I should say. The Broadband Committee recommended the resolution unanimously. In discussion, the committee strongly believes this is the best proposal for the county's residents and for county government. The draft agreement that you have at your table tonight is not complete and is not for vote tonight. I want to make sure that we separate those as two different things. The draft agreement is not what you're voting on. You're voting only on the resolution. But the committee felt like it was important to provide you that information tonight so that you can see some of the factors that were considered in drafting the resolution and arriving with the idea that Bertram was our strongest partner. One of which was already highlighted by Supervisor Swagel, that this provider did not request any financial commitment from the county. Our primary obligations with working with Bertram is my time and effort, as well as, and this would come back to the board for future vote as well, but Bertram would find it very helpful if they are allowed to install equipment on county-owned lands. Obviously, we wouldn't do that in any way that would compromise other county initiatives, but we already have a number of county-owned lands with electronics and internet-type equipment installed. So we'd simply be able to let them use existing facilities for their installations or things like that as part of working with Bertram. The benefits, I think, the committee evaluated to strongly outweigh any drawbacks with that. So I just wanted to, I guess I'm ready to move in towards my closing piece here. I want to also be clear too, this grant program is between the state and federal government and a private entity. The county is not writing for the grant, is not going to be receiving the grant or managing the funds. Our responsibility is only to represent to the state that we think Bertram has the strongest proposal for our needs. If the board does not agree and does not want to go that route, we simply endorse no one, and then the county's voice isn't heard, and the state will make a decision about who the successful provider will be that will be providing for us, or more than one providers. As I mentioned earlier, I think there's 29 project units that fall in our county, and the state is going to be awarding funds on the project unit basis, not the county basis. So we could conceivably end up with a number of different providers with or without the endorsement, honestly. Finally, I think, I've emphasized it a little bit already, but BEAD offers a transformational opportunity to really expand broadband access in our county. You see here, this is, I think, a map that's on the screen of the intensity of BEAD eligible locations, if I'm looking at it correctly. And you see that the yellow means that there's a high concentration of BEAD eligibility. So looking at our county, we really stand to have a huge benefit here from this federal investment. Timetable wise, the grants are due February 25th. Unlikely we'll hear much until early to mid-summer after the grants have been submitted. At that point, the state will do their evaluation and make some decisions public, and things will be subject to final federal approval before grants would be awarded and construction would begin. So I think even though we're sitting here having done a whole lot of work in a tight time frame in early 2025, it's unlikely that there's going to be any actual shovels in the ground and expansion of internet until early to mid 2026. But that's the way it is with this project and this program, and commendations to the committee that's worked really hard to evaluate these proposals and bring us to this point. So that's what I had for you. Hopefully that's helpful.
Supervisor Augustine?
I have one question. How does this tie into what Bug Tussle has done in our community? And is this direct competition against Bug Tussle? And are we concerned that if this comes in stronger and overtakes Bug Tussle, they're not gonna finish paying off their loan to us?
So those are really good questions. I'll answer part of it, and then if August has anything to contribute, I think he'd be happy to as well. But the primary answer is the state and federal government would be executing this project according to the federal law and authorization of funds, regardless of anything to do with a local arrangement like Kewaunee County has with Bug Tussle. So that in the grand scheme of things, it's something of a non-factor at the state and federal level would be my interpretation. As far as competition, I think competition is good for consumers, and if the committee didn't really talk much or have any discussion around the idea of market penetration for bug tussle. We're looking at this decision as what's the best way to get internet expansion throughout Kewaunee County.
As far as the loans are concerned, though, that we have with Bug Tussle, they are current on them. This would not actually impact anything until what was the date when this would be online, so to speak?
So if we're working on the hypothetical that construction begins in 26 sometime, we'd be looking at, later 26 or 27. In addition to that, I guess I would also say that the loans with Bug Tussle are secured by the
Right.
product that they've built out.
So we would get the towers if they somehow defaulted on those loans, and those towers would be worth far more than the loans that we have, that they have outstanding with us. Yes, Supervisor Brown.
But just, is Bug Tussle, do we know if they're trying to apply for these same funds from the state as Bertram is? I mean,
Yes.
that way they are.
Bug Tussle was one of the providers that we met with, yes.
Okay.
And you
so-
recall that they did come and present to the board previously.
Okay. So, I mean, obviously they're, Bertram and Bug Tussle are competitors.
Yes.
It's just that basically we're deciding to, if we go ahead with this, we're siding with Bertram, giving them a little bit of a competitive edge.
On these projects, we would be going with Bertram because Bertram clearly had the strongest proposal for the citizens of this county.
Okay.
And the committee felt very strongly that we need to make a decision on what is in the best interest of the residents of the county. I mean, we did not take into consideration any other contracts or providers that are currently doing business. Supervisor Lukes, saw a hand.
If Bertram would get this, how much of the underserved areas of the county would be covered? Would all of them be covered, or there will be still areas that are not covered?
So that's a really good question, Supervisor. Broadly speaking, 4,200 addresses covers a large chunk of the unserved and underserved in the county. Looking at the map, the yellow section that's up would be the area that has some to many eligible addresses. And you see that the dark areas are where there's already some pretty good service availability for the most part. That south central portion of the county may still have some issues because they're actually eligible for other funding sources that's been allocated but not yet built out. And so I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver ever. But the 4,200 addresses would make a significant dent in people who don't have good internet quality or speed right now.
But your question is can we guarantee that every single residence in the county will have service? Well, I mean, we're going to get pretty close with this. I don't know that it will be 100%. Our goal is to make sure that every resident, with the exception of August Neverman, would have coverage. And he's a special circumstance. I don't know where or how he built his home, but that there may be a few like him that just are not going to get service through this, but it should be minimal. Supervisor Gillett.
Administrator, you mentioned the 2 points that each municipality or township that, could provide to this equation. Is that already occurring through the 29 district or 29 project units you had mentioned, or on the contract here, the draft contract?
So a couple different things there. The county can't and doesn't have the authority to obligate any of the towns or municipalities. They will need to act separately if they want to. I did communicate with them with one letter in December. I have another draft on my desk, depending on the board's action tonight, that will be able to let them know what the board decides to do, and would be able to be very helpful with them taking any action they deem appropriate going forward. So our endorsement at the county level is completely separate and distinct, except that the committee has told me that, you know, if the board approves the resolution before you tonight, that it would be in the county's best interest to be very available and supportive of the town and municipal efforts to look at also endorsing. If they feel the same way, then that's become 7 points becomes 9.
And we do believe fairly strongly that the towns will agree with us that this is the strongest proposal.
I've been to, not about the proposals specifically, but I've been to 2 towns association meetings, and so has August, to brief them and keep them in the loop about about the project unfolding. So they have some familiarity with BEAD itself. Whether or not they've talked with providers at the town or municipal levels is their, you know, I'm not aware of that off the top of my head. It's their responsibility or business. But if they, to the extent that they want to hear what the county heard and the advantages that we saw in committee, I'm definitely willing and available to share that with them. And that's what I'm going to say in the letter, should the county board choose to approve the resolution.
Yes,
Would those 2 points that you're speaking of, is that per town or is that as an association, or how does that work?
Good question. Each municipal unit of government makes its own decision. So any town could make a decision the same as the county or the same as the town next to them, but it's all independent of one another.
but would that be per project unit, those 2 points then? Where that town is, if they support this, it would be 2 additional points on that project unit.
That's my understanding, and it gets a little bit complicated because the project units don't always follow municipal boundaries. But that ultimately the endorsement and how the points are awarded gets assigned at the Public Service, Wisconsin Public Service Commission on level. But rising a little bit up from the detailed question, it can only help the municipal government if they feel like that one proposal is stronger than another, and no one has an obligation to endorse any provider. The option to not make your voice heard and to allow the state and federal government to dictate the process without that input is certainly available to anyone who'd choose it.
And that is, you know, to make note too, as you mentioned earlier, that was one of the benefits of this particular provider, is that they are willing to take all of the project units. So obviously there's benefits to that for the county. Sir, yes, sir, Supervisor Brown.
So how many proposals did we get? I mean, obviously Bertram, when you said we had gotten one from
Yeah.
Bug Tussle, I mean, how many other
What were the other
providers?
Yep.
two?
So the committee heard proposals from 4 providers, the 2 that have been mentioned, as well as Charter and Brightspeed.
Okay, and the committee feels that this is the
Oh,
best
yes.
proposal.
It was
by
a unanimous decision, and it was not close.
Okay.
I mean, we felt very strongly that this was clearly the strongest proposal, and as we lay out to some degree in the proposals and agreements you have before you, resolutions, the fact that they're not looking for any money from the county is obviously very attractive. You know, merely in-kind contributions which are laid out, which will be clarified in the agreement. And then, of course, the fact that they are willing to take all project areas, that was also very impressive. And then, of course, they showed up and did a technological presentation and explanation that I think even August was impressed with. And the product that they are providing to the residents, we felt very strongly is superior as well. Yes, sir. Supervisor Bolenweider first, sorry.
So this is no cost to the county. However, it will be, is it state and or federal funds?
Federal.
Federal funds. So who is going to actually provide the oversight on the project and determine that it's complete and up to snuff with what the qualification was supposed to be?
Good question.
Yeah, so good question indeed. My understanding is that that responsibility would live with the state government on behalf of being a direct recipient of the federal government's funds. But that's not a county oversight responsibility if that's the direction you're going with it.
Supervisor Swagel.
So this would be nothing to do with towers. It's all fiber optic underground.
That is
Okay,
correct.
totally different than bug tussle. Thank you.
Different than the towers that Bug
Yes, of
Tussle
course.
has. Bug Tussle has also done some fiber.
Yes, of course.
And Supervisor Brown,
Do we have a contact on the state level to verify that when this whole project is done, that they've done what they're supposed to do, or?
So we,
I guess they dole out the funds, so it's really not our, but
yeah, and I know August is pretty close to this part of the process. If the board would like August to speak, I
Yep.
think he could maybe answer
you
some
want
of
to
those
come up to
questions
that
a little
microphone
better.
there, August, so that they can hear you and make sure it's green before you start talking. Otherwise, they'll never hear you in the back. Isn't that right, Supervisor Teske?
Yes, there is oversight at the PSC level. And this is one of the newer grants for the feds. They have the ability for us to complain. So if they tear up streets and don't fix them, that kind of thing, there's a method at the PSC for us to complain up if they were to do that. Now, we haven't seen that in other areas. So that's one of the things I looked at personally for all of the providers. We haven't seen that kind of problem, but there's a method in the grant process for complaints to pass up. Does that answer the question?
And while you're up there,
Sure.
Mr. Neverman, give us a little bit of your take and knowledge of this particular provider and their history and competence, if you would.
Sure. Just at a high level, looking at this map tells you the areas that they're gonna provide service in. Yes, down here, there's not service line in there. But I would still, if I was voting, still vote for it because it's gonna help all of these yellow areas. Now, the blue spots, you were talking about bug tussle. There are blue spots in here that are served by bug tussle because they're already served. They're not qualified. So yes, there's going to be some competition. Yes, there's going to be competition with Brightspeed. Yes, there's going to be competition with AT&T. That's the nature of this type of service. And in areas like this, it's unlikely there would be competition unless this money was spent. And I don't want to get into tons of detail here, but the cost is about $100,000 to $200,000 a mile to put fiber in the ground. So if there's already somebody in an area, it's unlikely a bank is going to give money to another provider to build in that area unless something is offsetting those costs. And that's what this is. And then specifically about the technology for this provider, their technology is excellent. They've done other projects within the state. We know about, or I know about them regionally. I know about them statewide. Also through the committee, they did an excellent presentation. I might say they're a little bit geeky, but if I want good internet, I want geeks. So everybody can hear me all right. I know I'm not at the microphone. So. Did I answer questions?
Yes. Are there other questions? Hold on, August, in case.
So if I'm understanding this right, then the blue areas were not in this BEAD grant. So we will not get, if I'm under bug tussle now, they will not come into this area and put new fiber in.
Not necessarily.
So I'm served by wireless with bug tussle. If I was in a yellow area served wireless by bug tussle, the feds don't consider wireless reliable service because whether other things can cause troubles with a wireless connection. But if I had fiber, then I would be blue because I'm already served. So it depends on the type of service you have. So if you're along one of the routes, you see blue dots randomly here. That's specifically because of those routes.
Much of the service from Bug Tussle, though, in the county is the wireless. And so there will be competition in at least a fair amount of the area. Okay. Other questions? All right. Nobody wants to get August started on the six credit 300 level college course that the rest of us have gotten from being on the committee with him. Yes, Supervisor Swaggle.
So then when Bertrand puts this in, is there any knowledge or what they'll charge the households versus what
Yes.
Bug Tussles is charging today?
Yes,
When
there
at
is.
completion of the projects?
There is indeed knowledge of that. Mr. Kroll?
I will need just a minute to look that up. I don't have it handy, but they did present that in committee. The rates are competitive with what's currently out in the market and other proposals.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And I can add that, but the grant requires specific services to be made available and that they must publish them and they must maintain them, which is why some providers chose not to participate because they didn't want the feds telling them how much they could charge.
I could find it if I dug, but are we able to disclose that, what they would be charging? I mean, they told us in closed session. So
That's
yeah,
that's
that's a good
a
question.
good point. It might not be appropriate to do that at this stage.
But I do believe that we can say their rates will be competitive. And that was one of the factors. That was one of the things that was taken into consideration when we were looking at what would be to the best benefit, the greatest good to the residents.
And Mr. Chair, just if I could really quickly too, I think as we're sitting here today, I want to just make sure everyone's clear on the idea that the actual decider of the grant will be the state Public Service Commission and the feds. And so to the extent that we have the ability to share our thoughts, our local opinion based on our discussions with them, but may not carry the day with the provider of choice. And there is also the whole competitive grant award process happens after tonight with the writing and submission of the proposal. So I think that's the reason to not share too much detail about proposed pricing and things like that, is because that could be part of the provider's strategy as they present their proposal to the state.
Any other questions? All right, looks like we're ready to head to a vote. Oh, as soon as we get the map down and get the screen back up. All right. There we go. You may register your vote. $17 yes, none opposed. Motion carries. All right. Consideration of ordinance read at previous county board meeting. We have none. Communications from other counties.
From Chippewa County, a resolution to formally support the creation of an inpatient psychiatric treatment facility in northern Wisconsin. And from Jackson County, a resolution for elk damage.
All right. Are there any Kewaunee County events to be shared? Supervisor Swaggle.
I was called and informed to tell at the board meeting tonight from the Lakeshore CAP meeting, a thing that they've done to get more funding. So that's what they do it. It's counting of the homeless. And they sent me an email, so I'll read it. I hope it's not too long. We are writing to invite you to participate in the Lakeshore Housing Coalition's point in time count in Sheboygan County, Manitowoc, Kewaunee, and Door County. It's a community-wide initiative to address homelessness. Briefly, the point in time where the count is an unduplicated count of people experiencing homeless during a designated one-night period. The entire nation conducts this count twice per year, January and February. Volunteers and social service providers search the community for experiencing unsheltered homelessness. It's going to be done, planned for overnight hours of January 22nd, 2025, and the morning of January 23rd. So it'll be 2 shifts from 11 till 1 and 4 till 6. So to get more funding for Lakeshore CAP. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other events? All right. No comments from the chair tonight. We have February meeting, March meeting are scheduled. Would look for a motion to schedule the meeting for April at April 15th and on April 15th at 6 PM. We're going to take that motion by voice. Is there a motion? Supervisor Vollenweider, second by Supervisor Augustine. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Oh, wait, Supervisor Yonke. Yes, sir.
We hit that annual town meeting again. I don't know how many towns have their annual meeting on the third Tuesday of April every year.
Okay. So April 15th does not work for some. Clerk, you have suggestions? Well, that could interfere with my Earth Day celebrations. But other than that, what about April 8th? April 8th would work for the clerk is, okay, so why don't we shoot for the 8th? Okay, so I would need an agreement from Supervisor Vollenweider. You're willing to change your motion to the 8th? And the second was from Supervisor Augustine. He is willing to change that as well. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn? Supervisor Baker, second by Supervisor Gillett. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.